Okay guys, so I wanted to circle back real quick to the thing that happened with the battery, which was where the ratchet touched the post right there. Um, this is a big safety thing. When you're working in here, you always have to think about which way things are going to rotate. I was torquing down the transmission ground that's underneath the starter, and I had the battery in here because I wanted to keep the cable going naturally in the best direction so that it wasn't being flexed, which that was okay. The only problem is that I had two extensions so that I could get above everything, but I should have gone a little higher because I was at just the right arc to contact the battery, and I had my arm over the top of the battery, so I did not notice that I was going towards the battery until it arced. And when it does, don't let go of whatever it is. If you're holding something like a tool, pull it out of there as fast as you can, because otherwise you leave it on there and it arcs across, you're going to end up with a fire, or you won't be able to get it out of there because it's going to heat up fast. So fortunately the ratchet was a better conductor than me, but yeah, definitely something to be cautious of. And then also the other one was over here when I busted my fingers. They're not doing great, but you know, they're healing up. But this was the same thing, the height. I had it up to the point of where these connectors and everything was over here, and I was pulling on the end of the breaker bar, so I thought I was good. The only problem is that it was so tight that when it broke free, my front hand slammed into everything over here, and probably on the spring clamp down there or something, I cut my fingers open. So again, if I had thought about what was in the path of the arc that the tool was going to be making, and where pressure was going to be released, I could have gone a little higher and avoided all that. So hopefully I can keep you from hurting yourself any more than you need to, like I did. So. Okay guys, so getting the alternator down into here, the way that I found that was the easiest was to push the pulley down and then get the ear past this hose and pull this hose out of the way to get it to slide down in there. And once you get it down in there, kind of get the ear around here, and then it'll drop down in there a lot easier. And then once you get it all the way down in there, it's pretty easy to twist it around. And the biggest thing I wanted to show you was this here, what I was talking about with that sleeve. You can see that sleeve is inside, and this is super loose now. So all that fighting I did and all that scratching up on the top of the case that I did with a pry bar was completely unnecessary. I just needed to tap that sleeve back so that it would slide in, and then put that bolt in to pull the sleeve back. So don't waste your time fighting getting it in. Just use a pry bar to get it out, and then hammer that sleeve back into the ear, and it'll be way easier. So okay, so the alternator is in there but not torqued yet. And I wanted to mention something. When you put the alternator in, make sure that you don't torque this top bolt yet. You want to just get this through and snug down, you know, decent. But you want to get the bottom bolt in while you can still rotate on that top bolt. If it's torqued down, then you're going to have to be fighting to move the alternator up and down. So get it lined up and then feed the bolt in from the bottom. And unfortunately, this is one where you really need small hands because there's not a lot of space. So a lot of your coming in is going to be through here and back here, and it's pretty tight. And the bottom bolt is recessed in there, so it's about midline of the alternator. So to get in there, through this gap right here between the ABS module and the alternator. You can see there's a perfect gap there. Well, I found the best way to do it, and I recommend you get one of these, is this right here. This little tiny short extension with a regular socket. Now, if you have a deep set socket that's pretty close to the same size, that'll work. But if you can see here, I only have a 1/4 inch drive deep set, and with that adapter, it's a little bit further out. And that is enough difference that with this, it hits the ABS module, and with this, it goes right through the middle of that gap. So if you can get one of those, do it. And this is a 12 millimeter, so if you need the size on that for the deep set, 12 millimeter. So hope that helps. Okay, the alternator is in and it's torqued down now. So on this, getting into there with the torque wrench is a lot more difficult. If you don't have the right size torque wrench, you may need to remove the wheel and take off the apron, which is that plastic piece down on the wheel well there. Because the torque wrench handle is generally thicker than this gap, or at least a little bigger, so getting it between there is more difficult. So what I ended up doing to get to the bottom bolt was I used this little torque wrench to get back in from the back end. And the bottom bolt, the torque is 16 foot-pounds, and if you convert that, that would be 192 inch-pounds, which is towards the top of this range, but totally doable. So if you try to get something like this, it's going to be real difficult, and you won't be able to get the swing on it you need unless you get down from the wheel well. So with this one, I was able to get back in through the back here and get it down underneath the alternator there, and then with my other hand coming from the front side down here, I was able to line it up with the bolt underneath. And then when I got it in there, there's not a lot of space to crank it, so I had to hold the socket in place on the front while I cranked it on the back, so that I could get that one click that I was able to get back there. Oh goodness, car kind of distracted me there, guys. I was saying the one click there. I really lost what I was saying, but let's just move on. So for that one, the 192 or 32 foot-pounds, and then for the top bolt here, that one is going to be 16 on the bottom one, sorry guys, 16 on the bottom ones, and then 32 on the top one here. And then to attach this bracket on the very top, that one is 74 inch-pounds. So and then also when you put your cables onto the post, that one's going to be 84 inch-pounds. So it's not a lot of torque. You won't really have to go very hard, but you're going to need a little torque wrench like this guy that does inch-pounds. For the cable here, I'm going to run my new cable directly to the post, but this existing cable I'm going to leave in parallel with it. And that comes from the fuse box. So I'll leave that one in parallel and just put a new connector on here, because this one is too small to fit over the post over here. So instead of trying to ream that out and make it large enough and weaken the walls, I'll just put a new ring terminal on there. That's probably 6 or 8 gauge wire, I'm not sure, I'll have to check, but then that will go right over the top. Now it won't have these ears to line up with the slots in there, but as long as I hold it in place, when I torque it down, it's not really going to matter. And at 84 inch-pounds, it's not going to be ripping your arm off. And then once that's done, then you pop your bracket down in here that holds the crankshaft position sensor in place. That's one thing when you have this off that you might want to check and make sure that that wire going down underneath the alternator and above the water pump is popped into the bracket down there. And then pop the clip in there, and then up here the connector behind there, that little brown one, just pop that clip in, and that's this guy here, and this one back in here to the, oh boy, that's the crankshaft position sensor. The one down here is actually going to the AC, my mistake. So when you pop that one in, that's going to the AC, and up here is your crankshaft position sensor, and you can see down in here how it goes through that bracket, so it's a lot easier to get to when you have the alternator out. So the belt is going to be my next step, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that. So again, with the hydraulic tensioner, gentle pull, and then get it lined up on everything but the water pump pulley, and then you should be able to slide it over the water pump pulley gently. Well, not gently, it's probably not going to be gentle, but easiest. So I'll do that and I'll be right back. Oh yeah, so one thing I forgot to mention is that this is a 5/16 stud, so my connector's gonna be a 4 by 5/16. So it's good to have different sizes, because like on this particular vehicle, the studs are not all the same size, and especially if you're changing out the alternator. Also guys, let me correct myself on the torque on the two alternator bolts. The bottom one is 16 foot-pounds or 192 inch-pounds, but the top one is not 32. The top one is actually 38 foot-pounds. Okay guys, so the belt is back on, and I'm going to be honest, this isn't an easy thing to do by yourself. It's a whole lot easier to have somebody hold the tensioner from up above while you crawl underneath and guide the belt onto the pulleys. That way they can make sure it stays on up here and you can visually see everything from underneath. So the way that I did it was to get it onto everything except for the water pulley, and keeping it lined up on those pulleys is no easy job, and you really need a couple hands. So what I did is I pulled the belt tool all the way down slowly, and then once I got it all the way down, I just tucked it underneath my armpit, and then was able to use my hands inside there. And the whole time you need to keep an eye on all the pulleys, make sure the belt stays aligned pretty well and on them. And then as you have it cranked all the way, you can actually work it up around the pulley on the water pump because it's smooth, so it's easier to get on. It's really frustrating, and honestly at some points it made me wonder if they'd put a different size pulley on the alternator, but that was not the case. It's just extremely difficult one-handed, or I mean one-personed. If you have big arms, you're not going to be able to do it. So my recommendation is, if you need to get in there, remove the wheel and the apron, and you'll have a much easier time. And then on the bottom you can watch the crankshaft on the back and the air conditioning compressor on the front to make sure that they stay on while you work it up around the water pump. But it's, any way you do it, it's not an easy thing to do, but it's possible, just frustrating. So getting the breaker bar on, the way that I had to do that was to rotate the socket and put the breaker bar in, because when I tried to do it up here, the hose was in the way. I actually took the bracket off to see if I could get a little extra room, but I was not able to, so I just rotated the socket and then was able to get it on here and had plenty of room to pull it down. It doesn't, take the whole length. It only takes a little bit, you got plenty of room that way. So that's there. I'm gonna go ahead and reconnect these plugs, and I'm gonna get this cable prepped up, and my other one too. So I'll be right back. Another thing I should mention is that if you're doing this by yourself, the pry bar being handy is real nice, because you can reach down with it and slide your belt onto the pulleys if they get off. But make sure when you get done that you go to the bottom and everywhere, look all around to make sure that your pulleys are lined up fully and that the belt is seated from shoulder to shoulder. So for the existing cable, that wire is a 6 gauge. I left these 2 connectors down here disconnected right now so that I could have a little more flexibility on the line, but it's a 6 by 5/16 for this one. So I basically just lined it up with the way that it's going to go and let the cable curve in its natural arc, and put it into there and tightened it down, and then marked from the connector to the cable underneath. This has got the shielding around it, so you can't really see, but just pull it back and then you can mark the cable and the connector, and then you know which orientation when you crimp it down. So I'm going to crimp that down and put it on there and reconnect these and start on the main cable for the alternator that we're adding. Okay guys, so that connection is tightened now and lined up like I had it. And the way that I was able to do this without too much difficulty was to bring the crimper down this way and rest it on top of that bracket there and keep the round handle towards my chest, and then pump the other side with one hand or both. It's a little tough to compress all the way, but I got it lined up the way that I want. And I found that keeping that shielding away easiest was to just lightly tighten a pair of vice grips onto it so that it held it against the wire. So now I'm going to clean this up and put some shrink wrap on. So I'm going to raise it away from the alternator so that I'm not heating up the alternator, and shrink wrap that on there, and then I can let that shielding come back down and it'll look nice and pretty. Okay guys, so there it is, heat shrink wrapped. You can see where the stud mating surface, that ring in the middle, where it contacts. So I made sure that my shrink wrap didn't go up to that point. I went close to it, and I made sure that where it was at, I could get a nice seal. It was a nice flat surface on the connector, and you can see up close it has, it's real hard to see, but it has like a seal. There's an adhesive in there, and you want to heat it up enough that that adhesive starts to come out of the edge. Maybe you can see it on the back here better. Yeah, you see that shiny part there, that's the adhesive. So start at the front end here, and you may have to push it once it's heated up, and then just work your way back towards the back, and then you won't get any air in the middle, and you'll have a real nice solid connection. And this thing is solid because it's crimped well, and it's in the right orientation to where it'll go right on the stud real easily and not be under strain. So then if I pull this down, then it just looks like a nice custom cable in the harness. which it is. So there we go, right there. And then I'll bring my new cable in and attach it from a different angle so that they can both sit on there. So on any of these surfaces, the reason I avoided the face there is because when I put the mating surfaces together, if part of it's got that in there, it's not going to compress flat. So even between the two lugs, if you have shrink wrap across the bottom and it overlaps with the metal here, then it's gonna cause it to not seat flat between the rings. So you want to cut that part off and make sure that it's sealed back to where it starts after that cutoff. So that's on there. Let me grab the new cable and put on the new connector and we'll move forward. Okay guys, so I laid this out. When you run your cables, the best path is going to be the shortest path with the least amount of curves. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to attach from this direction coming in, because that'll avoid any conflict with the factory connection there, and then I'll be able to connect to the harness here, attached to it with my loom to that loom, and then float it around here to where I can reattach it to this harness, and then along this harness back here, and then when I get to the air ducting here, I can just go over the top of this hose and then tuck it back through right between here. And I could even, mount my fuse to the air box here on the extension or the bracket part, not the actual housing where it would go through, but onto this part here. You would have to disconnect it whenever you need to open up the air box, but a couple little screws, not really a big deal. And then from there, that needs to be within 6 inches to a foot of the battery, so then it'd just be from there right to the battery. So or even I could just float the fuse in there, but I'll kind of start at the far end and then work my way to here, and then that'll be a decision towards the end there when I put the battery in the housing and everything, and get it back to where it will be, the direction it will be. So I'll come back after I get the cable dressed up over here and connected. Okay, so here's our mark, and you can see they're real close there, but I don't want to go against the metal bracket. So what I'm doing here is I'm just pushing this slightly over so that I have the clearance to bring that one in without being interfered by the shrink wrap or the angle that's in there. And it looks like it's really close, but it's not quite as close as it looks. That's enough right there, and that's not bending that cable much because it's already taking such a sharp bend as it is. So okay guys, you can see I got it torqued down on here, and I went ahead and put the new cable on the bottom because I hadn't put the shrink wrap as far up, and on the old one I cut the shrink wrap off of that bottom corner of the face so that it won't interfere when they're put on there. That one was 84 inch-pounds, and this is what it's going to look like. I got some loom on there, and you can follow it around where it's going to go. It's going to attach along here and then come through here and then just come out wherever we put the fuse. So it's all going to look like it was just factory installed, except new and much better. So yeah, let me go ahead and tie that down, and I'll be right back.